So, John, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
No, thank you very much, Doc. I really appreciate being here, and just being invited by you to have the conversation is quite humbling. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you on the show, John. And before we walk into the future, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow
Um,
up?
yeah, so Doc, I was born in East London, in the Eastern Cape, not east of London. I was born in the Eastern Cape, in East London. I grew up in a place called Ezwelicha, also Episho. During that time, I think it was in the Bantustans, it was in the Ciskei. It was a very thriving community at the time. It was very difficult times, of course, during those times, but in a thriving Bisho Township at the time. Yeah, I went to school at Dale College, and then I went on to further my studies in Bloemfontein at the University of the Free State.
And John, what was your dream career when you grew up?
Yeah, Doc. So I think at about age 4 or 5, it was a policeman, and there's nothing deep there about justice or anything. It was just a kid, I guess, who just liked guns, playing cops and robbers, good guys versus bad guys. So nothing deep there about moral justice or anything. But as time went on, when I got to high school, it was a number of things. There was no one thing. When I finally got to grade 11, standard 9 at the time, I applied to get into medicine at UCT. I applied to get into engineering at WITS, and also quantity surveying in the Free State. I didn't make it to UCT. WITS did accept me for engineering, and also the quantity surveying at the Free State. But when I got to the Free State, because my dad didn't want me to come to Johannesburg, he just thought Joburg was this bad place. When I got to the University of the Free State on registration day, I changed my mind, and instead of QS, I registered for a BA accounting, a Bachelor of Accountancy, to go the CA route. I think a lot of my friends were going that route. It was also the most promising career at the time. And I did enjoy a lot of accounting throughout high school as well. So it kind of made uh, quite a good sense for me to actually go into that kind of stream.
And tell us, John, who inspired you in your early days?
Uh, yeah, hands down, Nick, it was my mother. Hands down, it was my mother. Just to see the sacrifices that she made with what she had, and the difficulties that she had to push through to get me into the best possible school. I think, I mentioned I went to Dale College in a time where black scholars were not really allowed to get into those former Model C type schools. At the time, we were the first batch in the early 90s to really go into the school. I mean, I remember I had to go for an interview to even get into the school, and to see, the things that she had to go through during that time where things were kind of rigged against her. She was also just recently divorced from my dad. Yeah, it was just an inspiration for me, and it made me want to do anything and everything possible in my life to make her proud. She isn't here right now anymore, but still, that memory and that motivation to keep on going is deep in my mind. Yeah.
And John, today you are the head of youth strategy at Nedbank. Looking back over your career, was there a turning point, or maybe a number of turning points where things could have gone different?
Yeah, there were quite a number of turning points. And when I actually look back at those turning points, there's some decisions that I made that I thought in retrospect were bad decisions, but they led me to where I am currently. I think one big turning point was when I decided to leave a job at MultiChoice to go and join the public sector at the health department in Gauteng, because there was promise of growth there as well. Shadowing the CFO and in the finance stream, and eventually, probably getting that role in a number of years to come. That didn't materialize. got frustrated there for a number of years. So that was the first decision that I made that I thought at the time was, ooh, probably a bad move. But I think 5 years in, I met a lady there called Dr. Musima Mabunda. She's now Chief Clinical Officer at Vitality. So at the time, my direct boss at the department had gone on leave to go and do his doctorate, his thesis, and we were seconded to the office of the MEC for a couple of months, where Musima was I think the business manager of the office, and she met me and she asked me, "So what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I'm really interested in strategy." And she said to me, "Fine, we'll find you something to do that'll help you do the things that you like to do and you want to do." We worked together for a couple of months, and then I think she had to leave a few months later. But 7 months after she left, one August in 2017, she gave me a phone call. She told me that she was building a team at Momentum, and if I wanted to have a go at the role, that was a turning point in my life because it got me into business in product. And I always tell her that, she saved my life at the time. She always tells me, no, it was God working through her. And that humility, about her as well was like really inspirational. And that was a turning point in my life that changed everything for me, that got me into financial services, that got me into product, and that got me into the path that has led me to where I am today. So that was really, really a turning point in my life.
And John, what is driving you today? What is motivating you? What is energizing you every day?
First and foremost, Dr. Nick, it is my family, that drives me every single day. I never knew that having a family and kids, does to one's motivation, and everything I do and I try and do in my life is to make sure that I continue to where my parents left off and to leave them in a better place. Um, I'm not sure if you've managed to see my status on my WhatsApp, but it talks about my why, right? And my why is to impact people by creating awesome experiences for them so that they can in turn replicate those experiences for others. So it's a ripple effect for me. If I can create experiences for even one or two individuals that will replicate those experiences and impact others, then I would have done a great job. I also happen to work for a company that is purpose-led in a role you mentioned that has direct impact in the lives of people. Working in the youth segment in personal banking at Nedbank, what we do and the decisions that we make, they directly impact a vast number of young people in South Africa. You know, that is both an honor and a privilege to wake up every single day and be part of the solution to what's happening in the country at the moment, especially with the young people.
Thank you. Now, John, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Of course, Doc, as a leader, you need to have context of your environment and understand, where you are, what is going on in and around you, and where the world is going. I don't want to end our conversation without me saying that. But and if you look at our context in Africa and South Africa specifically, I think we need to go back to the basics and do them well. Every morning on the drive to drop off the kids to school, I'm listening to 702 in the car. And without fail, 70%, and I think I'm being kind, of the stories are bad news. And I think they stem from a failure of leadership, whether it's service delivery issues, corruption, and not just in government, in the private sector as well, driven by the need to self-serve, there's lawlessness and just a lack of humanity. I think we need to go back to the basics where leaders lead with vision and integrity, humility, empathy, and openness. Leaders that are people-centered, and a leader who aims to actually elevate everyone else who's around them. I think we should learn to actually go back to those basics and do them right, especially in our context.
And John, what is it that we have to do more to build, develop, and encourage future leaders?
Um, I do not think that there's a single challenge today that humans have not really, faced. I think to develop future leaders, we need to encourage them, I think, to be curious and have a hunger to learn and a hunger to serve. I think if we can get people that are hungry to actually solve the problems that are around them, would have done well to really encourage the next batch of leaders. I mean, I read a book that Sim Chabalala had recommended in one of other podcasts called The Irrational Optimist, and it just details the journey of humankind and humanity through the millennia, and it shows that every single big change we've managed to adapt, not just adapt, but to thrive and be better as the human race, and I think that we will be fine, and we just need to encourage the next batch of leaders to be curious, to always learn, and to always learn, and have that hunger as well. I think we'll do well.
Now, John, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges, career challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges in their career that they should expect? And how should they go about overcoming these career challenges?
As I mentioned, Doc, we've as humankind, we've been through a lot during the millennia. We've always had big changes. They're happening more rapidly now, but we've always managed to overcome, not just overcome, but thrive. So I do think that we will be okay. I do think that the leaders of today need to be curious, have that inclination to learn. But I think one skill that they will need to have in the curiosity as well is not being afraid of being wrong and not being afraid to actually fail and not being afraid to fail forward. I think there's a lot of lessons to learn in failure. So as long as you stay curious, as long as you have got the hunger to learn, they will be able to manage to overcome the challenges that are coming. Yes, there's people are being very scared of AI taking jobs. I think that's been the buzzword for a number of years now, the buzz narrative for a number of years now. But we'll get through it. We'll get through it. Just have that hunger to learn, understand your context, understand where you are. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to learn, and don't be afraid to fail forward
So, John,
a
as a
day.
mentor to many future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
You know, Doc, I don't have one person. I don't, I've never had a formal mentor-mentee relationship in my life. There's one guy who's actually referred to me as his mentor, and I'll tell you his story just now. But generally, I do have. I'm an open book. I do have a lot of people that do come to me, and with issues, whether it's business or personal or career wise, and we have those conversations. And I don't want to be presumptuous to say, oh, it was me that then led to that thing, but I think I'm happy to play a part in people's stories and to see some of them go on to succeed and do wonderful things in the world. But I cannot, with all humility,
Sure.
say it was me who said and did that. But there was this one guy in university who I was his senior in university, where we studied the same course. I was also happened to be his home cell leader in the church. And this guy used to look up to me. He's the only person that's called me, John, you're my mentor. And fine, I just rolled with whatever he did. And the funny thing is, this person was actually way smarter than me. I was ahead of him, but he was way smarter than me. But he still, I think, looked up to me for certain things, whether it was personal, also school-wise. Because again, getting into the University of the Free States, into the degree that I was coming into, there weren't a lot of black students. I think our class was one of the first classes with like a lot of black students that were coming into the B accounting degree. So we had that kind of relationship where I was going before him. He was smarter than me, but he was still call me his mentor. This guy went on, I think, to um, to go on to his honors year in his CTA. I think he failed it a couple of times. I think probably like 5 times. I think he went on to go finally pass, go into his board exams. I think he failed those a couple of times. I think he failed them. I think Psycha had a rule where if you fail a number of times in your board exam, you go back and you have to do your honors degree. He failed that a couple of times, went back to do his honors degree again, and he managed to pass that and managed to pass his board one, and he managed to pass his board exam, and he managed to qualify as a chartered accountant. Unfortunately, he passed on soon afterwards. But that story of that tenacity, from a guy who had a lot of challenges, going into that stream, was quite inspiring. And I think it's a story that was worth telling. I think even Accountancy SA wrote about him back in 2015 when this happened.
And John, looking back over your own leadership career and maybe your learning journey, are there any role models of leadership who you have encountered and maybe worked with who you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
I already mentioned Dr. Musima. I think for me personally, for my personal journey, she has been very, very inspirational. Especially the part that she played. I also learned a lot from her in working with her in those very short stints at Momentum, and as well, yeah. But I think the one person who I think embodies leadership right now that I look up to is Lincoln Mamali. I think Lincoln is the most generous executive that I know. He's humble, he's smart, he's caring. I think he lives to pour out his cup, and raise the next generation of leaders. Anyone I meet who's had an encounter with him has got nothing, but positive things to say about him. And he lives his purpose. He lives that thing that he wants to develop everyone else around him. And he doesn't have to be the smartest guy in the room. He always says that, but he always develops and cultivates, people that encounter him. So that's the one person I think head and shoulders above for me that I look up to in today's world in our country.
Thank you. And John, where can our listeners follow you and how can they connect with you?
My LinkedIn page is great. I think that's where I pen a lot of my thought pieces and articles. I also engage a lot with other people's posts and people that are doing great things in their fields, and I learn a lot from there as well. So for me, it's a two-way journey that where people can learn from me, and I can learn from them as well. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
And last but not least, John, what's your message to the millions of learners out there who are about to finish school, start a career, enter the world of work? What are maybe one or two success principles that they should keep in mind?
Three things for me is to stay curious, always be willing to learn. Do not be afraid to be wrong. In fact, one of the things I always ask myself is how might I be wrong? Just to challenge your kind of thinking there as well. I learned that from Ray Dalio. So how might I be wrong? And also, don't be the smartest guy in the room. If you're the smartest guy in the room, there's probably something wrong. Always try to be in a room where the people that can elevate you um, and take you to the next level.
John, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your leadership, Jody, and reminding us that we have to stay curious all the time.
Thank you, Doc. I really appreciate the opportunity, and Always great chatting to you. And also, I think the work that you're doing is also fantastic, Doc. Thank you so much for what you do.